The East African Community and the Southern African Development Community will open a joint summit today in Tanzania on the crisis in the Eastern DRC. The summit in Dar es Salaam begins with a ministerial meeting before the heads of state convene on Saturday. The meeting was agreed on by Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa, the current SADC chair, and Kenyan President William Ruto, the current EAC chair. Ruto earlier said both Presidents Felix Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda's Paul Kagame had confirmed attendance. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, Uganda's Yoweri Museveni, and Somalia's Hassan Sheikh will also be present. Let's bring in our correspondents. We do have from Tanzania, Isaac Lukando. Chris Ochamringa is live in Kinshasa, and Ethan Tashobia live in Kigali. Let's begin with you, Isaac. Foreign ministers from SADC and EAC are expected to meet today. Do we know where they are meeting and who's attending?
Well, authorities here are treating this meeting with a bit of sensitivity. The usual buzz that is associated with such meetings is not here, apart from reports telling us in media that there is going to be this meeting. Nothing on the street seems to suggest that there's such a meeting. There are no motorcades with sirens on the roads, nothing of that nature. But we've been led to believe by the government spokesperson's office that they're meeting at the State House today, the ministers that is, behind closed doors, where they will be deliberating, and hopefully later will be given a window into what has been discussed. We have no reason to believe that those that were supposed to be in this meeting have not yet attended.
Okay, Chris, who is representing Kinshasa, and do we know if there's any representation from the rebels in the eastern part of the country at this summit?
Satan will never die for you like Jesus did, because if he dies...
So according to Congolese officials, President Felix Tshisekedi is expected to participate in this summit, although they have not confirmed whether he will be there, will attend virtually or be there physically. We've been told that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Therese Kaikwamba Wagner, is in Dar es Salaam to make a case for the DRC. Now, the M23 rebels are not going to be there because this is a meeting that is supposed to be between heads of state, and that would be a very serious source of tension between the DRC and the East African community and the Southern African Development Community. So what we expect from the DRC is for them to reiterate their demand about the immediate withdrawal of Rwandan defense forces from Congolese territory, and they also want the M23 rebels to leave all the areas that they have captured. There are more than 100 towns and villages in North Kivu province that they have captured, and a few in the South Kivu as well, and for meaningful talks to start happening. And this is all happening as the M23 rebels have consolidated their hold on power in Goma. They have installed new governors, mayors, and they're saying they're also advancing to South Kivu province. So it's a fluid situation in Eastern DRC. We hope that this meeting brings lasting peace in DRC. Penina?
Right. Ethan, Rwanda has been accused and seen as a major factor in the DRC conflict. Who will be representing Rwanda, and what message are they taking to this summit?
What we get from Kigali is that Rwanda's Foreign Affairs Minister, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, and a team of technocrats have already arrived in Dar es Salaam to sort of lay the ground for negotiations of the heads of state tomorrow. But we also, considering that the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, was attended the virtual meeting of the East African heads of state, we also see him attending the joint SADC-EAC meeting, heads of state in Dar es Salaam. Rwanda's take on this meeting is to ensure that what they consider the root causes of the conflict, which is the alleged collaboration between Congolese forces, FARDC, and the FDR. It's an armed group that has its own aggressions on the Rwandan government. They are into collaboration, and that, according to Rwandan government, threatens Rwanda's security. And also, there are hundreds of thousands of Congolese refugees, especially Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese who have been refugees in Rwanda for over 30 years. And if that can be addressed as well, that would go a long way in addressing the conflict in the region, but also the grievances that Rwanda has always, given out into the international, platforms on as high as what are considered the root causes of the conflict. So the issue of Rwanda, being accused of supporting M23, we saw the president the other day saying that he doesn't know that if Rwandan security forces are in DRC, but he also mentioned that Rwanda has all the reasons, 100% reasons as to why they should, protect their borders and especially protect themselves from the threats, from the origin of the threats of the security on Rwanda. So we expect the heads of states to attend, especially the Rwandan President Paul Kagame, and the root causes, as they have always mentioned, being addressed from that meeting that is going to be in Dar es Salaam. Penina.
All right, thank you very much for that update, Ethan Tashobia. Live for us there in Kigali. From Tanzania, we had Isaac Lukando in Dar es Salaam and Chris Chamringa in DRC's capital, Kinshasa. So let's get more perspectives on this development story. We're joined by Novatus Egosha, international relations expert and advocate of the Tanzanian High Court. Novatus, thank you very much for joining us. What should we expect from this joint SADC-EAC meeting? And do you think the joint summit will be an effective meeting?
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I should say that diplomacy divided delays peace, and diplomacy united fosters peace. So this SADC and East Africa Community member states joint meeting is a pivotal moment for the DRC because it's going to hear proposals from both sides. But if we remember the meeting which was held by SADC heads of state back in January 31st came up with a communique, especially section 13, which they also wanted to make sure that the Rwandan heads of state and representatives are also participating. So I do believe that if there is going to be a joint roadmap for both teams, the SADC, the East African Community, but also hearing Rwanda, at the same time hearing DRC, it's possible to have a successful peace and of course ceasefire for the fighting militia groups in the DRC. Because as we know, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, this isn't a new conflict. I mean, it's gone on for years and years. What have been the major challenges to resolving it? How can it be resolved? And speaking of the M23, what is the best way forward for that militia group?
Okay, it's been going on for years. I'd just like to give a short example like the game of ping pong, when you have two players, one hitting a ball to the other player, but as time goes on, they use a lot of force, and at the end of the day, even the players and onlookers cannot know where the ball is going to hit. Now, when it comes to the DRC, it's not one ball and not only two players. There are so many things on the ground. First of all, it's a question of ethnicity and historical reasons. You're looking at the Tutsi living in Rwanda since the 19th century, as far as the Banyarwanda, Banyamulenge, who are in northern Kivu and southern Kivu. But you also have another militia groups that are Interahamwe, AFDL, and of course the most notorious one, M23. This is a question which is brought by colonial reasons, but at the end of the day, there are also so many players. The only way forward is two things. First of all, the short-term initiative whereby there must be a ceasefire. But after having a ceasefire, they need to coordinate government integration of the wishes of these fighting groups, because people would pick arms not for reasons that they cannot go to the peaceful negotiations table. There must be reasons. So the M23 came up in March 2009 simply because they were divided from the peace agreements with the Kinshasa government. Now, if the M23 has to be dismantled or it has to lay down its arms, it needs to be integrated. But on the other hand, the East African community needs to come with a very coordinated roadmap. For example, they need to make sure that those who are funding these militia groups are coming up to the table, having one voice, one peace, and a joint coordination as Africans. Because it's not about colonial legacy only, but it's a question of we Africans coming up with one perspective of what can be done. Because on one side, you can hear the international community is saying Kigali or Rwanda is the problem. At the end of the day, Rwanda is also having its own proposals that we are supporting those Tutsis that are Congolese citizens. And actually, when you look at the facts on the ground, historically, these are really Congolese citizens. So in order to come with peace, both sides of the fighting situation must be put on the table, come up with a joint roadmap to go forward.